It's finally March. Did the 1 seed solidify their claim for the top spots, or are there still spots to be up for grabs? Find out next on Locked On College Basketball Game Night.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into a March edition, I believe the 9th episode of Locked On College Basketball Game Night. So thank you guys for joining me, each and one of you guys along the way. It's been really fun to talk to you about what I love most, the nitty gritty of the games we saw this weekend, where I'll give you live reactions and much, much more. I'm Leif Thulin, host of Locked On College Basketball, a host of that along with Isaac and Andy, host of Locked On NBA Big Board, contributor on Locked On College Basketball, as I mentioned, and I'm excited to host a show about what I love most, Saturday hoops, and breaking it down with you guys. So thank you guys for making Locked On College Basketball your first listen each and every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. In the first segment, we're going to talk about the heavyweight SEC clashes. We're talking Auburn winning the SEC, Tennessee and Bama dueling to the buzzer. Second segment, we'll go to the Big 12, where some of the heavy hitters in the Big 12 met up. Kansas and Texas Tech from within Fog Allen on the 70th anniversary of Fog Allen Fieldhouse playing ball. That's a cathedral of our sport. Arizona and Iowa State. Can Iowa State avenge Arizona's big victory where Caleb Love hit a 60-footer? And in the final segment, we'll talk about the more bubblicious SEC matchups where lots of teams needed wins, but only so many could get them. Who's in, who's out if the tournament started today, per me, and what the experts had to say after these interesting games. Some teams performed admirably and some did not. All right, let's dive right in. Auburn smoked Kentucky at Rupp. And the crazy thing is, you'd say, oh, Jahmai Broome probably dominated. Nope. He had 1 point at halftime. This game was over well before halftime even struck. He had 1 point, meaning he didn't score a field goal at halftime. Well, I've always said that, to have an A game, and last week we talked about Duke's A game, where when Isaiah Evans is hitting shots, Duke's untouchable. And that largely still applies. But I talked about Auburn many times throughout this show, where Auburn, when they're playing their best, it's because Miles Kelly, Chad Baker-Mazara, and Tahad Pettiford are hitting shots, and they score double digits. Well, all of them had double digits at halftime, and they combined for 73 points. That's more than many teams score in a game. And that's 3 players that aren't even the top 3 scorers on this team. I mean, they're up there. But when they're going, you can pack it up. You're not going to beat them. They combined for 73, 30 from Kelly, and he hit a lot of threes. Some were bad shots that went in, according to his coach, Bruce Pearl. 22 from Chad Baker-Mazara, and Bruce Pearl made the comment kind of in jest, well, that's 2 straight games without a technical foul. But I think the bigger point to take away from that is he lets his players be him. Like, Chad Baker-Mazara is a fiery guy, but when he's right, he's one of the biggest X factors in college basketball. And then Tahad Pettiford, who I think is their most talented scorer, scored 21. He's a freshman. You don't see many freshmen participating on these top teams aside from Duke. And Tahad Pettiford stepped in, and he's been big in every big matchup. He's been great. Now, Kentucky's not very good defensively, so I want to say that too. But it's pretty hard to have a game like that where Jahmai Broome scores under double digits, and it's not even a question who's going to win the basketball game from the get-go when you're playing at Rupp, much less against any of these SEC teams. Rupp has not been friendly to Bruce Pearl. This is his first win at Rupp. And Kentucky, who's known for how prolific they are shooting the ball from deep, they only made 4 threes, all of which were made by Kobe Brea. Speaking of Kentucky, they may be in trouble in terms of getting production from the outside a little bit. Jackson Robinson out for the season. He had something tear in his wrist. He's getting surgery, and Mark Pope announced that after this game in a press conference. But they only made 4 threes, and it wasn't for lack of trying, 4 of 17. But when I say for lack of trying, 17 is a measly number, just a meager number compared to what Kentucky likes to hoist up. And Bruce Pearl said the scout was not it was not that they don't care about giving up 2s, but they're going to prioritize taking away 3s, and boy, did they execute. That was great. And another thing, Otega Owe only had 4 points. Throughout this entire season, there's only been 2 games where he scored under double digits, and this was one of them. Auburn's had a way of taking away the best offensive players from other teams. Think of how they dominated against Alabama at times, where they proved from the get-go that they were the class of the SEC. and they took away Mark Sears to the tune of 4-17. They did that to Otagoe. They did that to all of the shooters outside of Kobe Brea on Kentucky's roster. So Kentucky's defense is concerning, but the story is Auburn. When Jahmai Broom's being assertive, then they can still win. But this is a game where he wasn't assertive and didn't have to be, and it speaks to the depth and the talent that Auburn possesses. Tahad Pettiford is a sixth man. Chaney Johnson's a seventh man, and those guys are both capable of scoring 20 points in a big game. Miles Kelly, Chad Baker-Mazara. I think Chad Baker-Mazara has a claim to be first team All-SEC. Likely will be second team. Really, really good players. And Dylan Cardwell and Jahmai Broom both could be Defensive Player of the Year in the Southeastern Conference. That's how good this team is. Real title contender, and they proved it, and they earned the SEC, winning it already because of some help from Tennessee. And that's where we're going to go next. This is the first win for Pearl at Rupp, and with help from his former school, Tennessee, Auburn won the SEC already with a few games to go, with some big games remaining on the schedule. Now let's go to Tennessee. They won in dramatic fashion, perhaps the game of the day, one of the games of the year, honestly. And they won in a game where I felt like Alabama had more chances to win this game in Tennessee. I'm a little conflicted watching this because I've been critical of Tennessee, saying, yeah, I don't think in close games they're all that great. I don't think they score easily enough, all these things. But Tennessee has a formula. They're going to play great defense. They're going to make it physical. It's very hard to make the game anything other than the way that Tennessee wants to play it. Tennessee won this game against Alabama with Alabama leading, and they showed their resilience. Zakai Ziegler got in foul trouble. Lanier wasn't particularly efficient. Lanier led the way with 18, along with 18 from Gainey. That was enormous. 15 from Ziegler, despite foul trouble. But the star of the show late was Jahmai Mashack, not known for his offense. He, in my opinion, is the best defensive player in the country. And he made the winning plays on offense, defense, and the equivalent of special teams of basketball, meaning special situations where the ball is loose on the floor. Who's going to go get it? Jahmai Mashack will. Who's going to double the big man and make it a jump ball? Who's going to get an offensive rebound or draw a foul at the end of the game? Jahmai Mashack did. So let's take you to why I bring that up. And here's the other thing. Mark Sears scored 24, and he was pretty good, but no one else was very good for Bama. They hit 9 threes, 9 of 24. That's not bad. Bama has been shooting poorly much of the year, and so that's right about on brand. It's a little over 33%. And, you know, I don't find that to be the problem for Alabama. The problem was they mentally collapsed late in this game. The pressure of Tennessee, which wasn't just defensive, but at times was, I think the mental pressure caused them difficulty. And Sears being the only guy with a good game made it difficult for Alabama to win, despite how well they rebound, despite them forcing turnovers early, despite Zakai Ziegler stepping out. Well, Bama had a chance to put away this game. They led by 4 late. Chaz Lanier drove baseline, scored plus a foul. So, you know, if they score 1, that's fine. They score a 2, and you're still up 2 with the ball. Instead, it's a 3-point play, but then Lanier misses the free throw, and there's Jahmai Mashack. Johnny on the spot draws a foul. Not a great shooter. You think, oh, Jahmai Mashack might be the guy you want to foul if you had to make that decision. Nope, drains them both. Moments before that even, he went to the rim and scored a layup when Tennessee desperately needed a bucket. Jahmai Mashack doubled the post and caused a jump ball alternating possession. He just kept doing the right things. And then, of course, they get the ball. Alabama is inbounding it. Here's the jump ball set to inbound, and they have 2 timeouts. 2 timeouts. Not just one that you don't want to burn, but 2 of them. And Nate Oates doesn't burn the timeout. Nate Oates not only doesn't burn the timeout, they get called for a 5-second count, and Tennessee has a chance to win the basketball game. And the play that seems to be busted up. All of a sudden, Felix Oparek sets a screen on Grant Nelson, and the ball is in the hands of not one of the guys you expect to shoot the ball. You expect Mashack to be one of the screeners, to be at the least or at the most a release valve, someone you can outlet to if everyone's taken away. No, Mashack takes it up a little bit on the left side, pulls up from 35, 40 feet, and cans it with releasing the ball with 0.2 seconds. Game winner from Thompson Bowling. Game winner for Tennessee. And Tennessee, the implication is Alabama was seen as one of the last 1 seeds. Tennessee, gets a huge win. They've got wins against Alabama and Florida. They've got their resume includes only losses in conference play, wins at Illinois. Teams fear playing Tennessee, and I think they've proved what I was skeptical of and what other people have been skeptical of. Can they win a close game? Can they win against teams that naturally score the ball? I talked about how Kentucky's a bad matchup because, yeah, Tennessee's going to defend, but Kentucky knows how to score. It doesn't matter what the personnel is. They score well, and Kentucky can't put up enough points. Well, Alabama is a scoring team, and Tennessee enforced the game. They made it. They imposed their will on Alabama to play Tennessee-style basketball. Chaz Lanier wasn't particularly special, and they found other ways to score. Ziegler was in foul trouble, missing much of the first half, and Mashack and Gainey were spectacular. Milicic was very good at times as well in this one, and they showed they're a little more well-rounded than perhaps I'd given them credit for. So, and I don't think Alabama was bad. They rebounded well. Grant Nelson played more physically than he had. They just didn't shoot as well, and I feel like they folded under the pressure late in the game. So, is the 1 seed locked up? No, it's not. And of course, the SEC tournament's going to mean something because, Auburn's pretty much got a 1 locked up. Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, I think you get 2 of those teams have a chance at a 1. I think it's most likely going to be one of those teams is a 1, 2 of them are 2s, because I think Houston will get the other 1. But Tennessee has now put their hat in the ring, and I think before it seemed like they were the furthest away from getting that 1 spot. So kudos to Tennessee, and excellent late game performance from Jahmai Mashack. Well, coming up next, we're going to talk about other massive clashes from teams fighting for positioning within their conference, the Big 12. But first, I'm going to tell you guys all about fabric. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. One of the best things when you talk about this is you need to talk about how affordable it is. When you're making these huge plans, you need to make good financial decisions. But with Fabric, you can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. So protecting your loved ones doesn't have to break the bank. It's also something where you can offer free digital wills and access to investment accounts that help you plan for your child's future. So do your due diligence and sign up for Fabric. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company. Not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Welcome back. I'm Leif Thulin, and I'm excited to talk to you guys about this on game night because the Big 12 is a very good league that we may have had too high of hopes for, but there are teams in this league that I certainly would want to avoid playing in March. Houston's going to be a 1. Like I just mentioned, I think they're ahead of Tennessee, but Tennessee certainly has a claim now with a marquee win against Alabama, beating another team in the running for the 1. But the Big 12 has a lot of big-time teams, including Kansas, who we've critiqued many times on Saturday. I've been disgusted by their play, seeing them live twice, but they didn't play badly in this one. Texas Tech went into Fog Allen on the 70th birthday of Fog Allen Fieldhouse and beat Kansas 78-73. This was a very, very close game with a lot of twists and turns, but to me, it wasn't a bad performance by Kansas. It was an impressive performance by the Red Raiders, demonstrating what they're capable of when healthy. They got 21 from Toppin, who's, in my opinion, a second-team All-American. Darion Williams is the guy I thought was going to be the best player going into the year. He had 14 plus the go-ahead 3. When it got tough, he put the old calm down sign, give me the rock, and knocked down the 3 when it mattered most. 15 from Christian Anderson, and I just want to say something. I think I've mentioned this before, but he is a stud. Christian Anderson is one of my favorite freshmen in the entire country, and he's a PTPer and a diaper dandy, as Dickie V would say. and Christian Anderson was great. KJ Adams at 21, Dickinson 18, 11 from Ryland Griffin. I think DeJuan Harris and Zeke Mayo certainly would like to have had better games, but you can't all play well. The Red Raiders got after it early stylistically. They shot, I think it was 15 of their first 18 were from three, and they were hoisting up shots. That's 15 of 18 shots from three. And you think, well, a lot of teams struggle at Kansas. They play a little with a little less confidence. The pressure of Fog Allen Fieldhouse gets them. Not Texas Tech. They came out swinging. They improved to 7-2 on the road, which is incredibly impressive because the basketball venues in the Big 12 are fabulous. You know, those are very difficult places to win, and they're winning consistently. Kansas, though, played very inspired with a 16-2 run early in the second half. They took a lead, and then right when they seemed to be seizing the game by the scruff of the neck, Hawkins, who had been scoreless to that point, hit back-to-back big threes to quell the Kansas run that had them take the lead. And you felt like that may have hurt the Kansas faithful and their belief in their Jayhawks after feeling like, oh, they've blown every opportunity to win. They blew a game where they led by 6 twice with under a minute to go against Houston. They got blown out by BYU. They've struggled to beat good teams, but could they do it? And then Hawkins hit those. And then Darian Williams hit a go-ahead three. And the final possessions for Kansas were a kind of a microcosm of the whole season. It embodied the whole season. Just a disconnect, unforced error between DeJuan Harris, who's as steady as they come. Not necessarily a gifted offensive player, but he can throw an entry pass every day of the week. Instead, he threw the ball away, and then they get the ball back with a turnover, stepping out of bounds. Texas Tech trying to be cute with the ball, not throwing it away from the corner. The corner known as the coffin corner steps out of bounds. Chance for Kansas. They're defending, not fouling up three. We're going to get back to that. That came up big in an SEC bubble game in the next segment. But they have a chance to tie the game, and Kansas creates nothing. Zeke Mayo hoists up a bad shot, air balls, and it just looked like Kansas doesn't know how to win late in the game. And that's so atypical of Bill Self, because Bill Self and Kansas throughout my entire lifetime have lived winning close games. They always win close games at Fog Allen Fieldhouse, and now it feels like every close game they lose. Kudos to Texas Tech. I picked them to be a team to finish the top 5 in the Big 12 that had 5 teams already in the top 10 preseason. So I'm pretty proud of them so far. But this is a top 10 team, probably a 3-seeded madness. Kansas, I think there are signs pointing the right direction, but I just don't see the potential that you once saw looking at this team on paper. Now, let's transition to Iowa State, which is a team I think has a chance to make a deep run in March Madness, playing against Arizona, who the last time they met, Caleb Love hit a 60-footer and sent Iowa State skidding. But today, it was in Hilton Coliseum. Hilton Magic was in full effect. Milan Momcilovic was back. Curtis Jones back. Keshawn Gilbert back. Momcilovic led the way, 18. He was on fire early, hitting 4 threes in the first half. And this game was it was over early. And early and often, Iowa State was getting good shots. And what was so impressive is, though Jones and Gilbert were back, they weren't right, but their presence matters to how they play. It matters to their identity, much like Momcilovic. When he was out, but those guys were playing, they lacked the spacing and the presence, the gravity that Momcilovic possesses as a shooter. Jefferson's a really good player, and he can play the 3, he can play the 4, he can play the 5. Momcilovic is a spacer, and it takes so much attention from the defense. It opens lanes for drivers like Gilbert, Lipsey, and Jones. And the balance of Iowa State's always great, but now they're well-rounded with their top guys in terms of the artillery. Those are their top 3 scorers, Momcilovic, Jones, and Gilbert. And they're the offensive weaponry that made Iowa State so good to start this year, where we knew Iowa State as a defensive team. We knew they'd be a very good defensive team. And offensively, maybe they'd be efficient, but they were pushing the tempo this year, improving from what was like 200th in tempo last year to one of the top 20 tempos. And they'd score at a top 15 efficiency. And now that team was one we'd hardly seen for the last month, and they've struggled. And it all started after losing a game that they should have won against Arizona, and now they got revenge, beating Arizona badly. Arizona got 18 from Jaden Bradley, and it wasn't necessarily that they played badly. It was that Iowa State looked like themselves again, even with Gilbert and Jones limited offensively. Tamin Lipsey stepped up and provided extra offense, and he's battling through a shoulder injury, where he's not been himself, the guy that we expect to be first team all Big 12. It's not been that, but he provides leadership, and when he provides extra offense, that's gravy. I still believe in Iowa State quite a bit because when they're right, to me, they're one of the best 8 teams in college basketball. I don't think they have the high-end potential of some other teams, but they are so consistently good defensively. Like when they played Houston, Houston's going to lock you down, and they manufactured points. And they manufactured points without their best scores. And then they still stayed in the game against a team that's known to blow out teams. They have been able to play shorthanded and survive, but when they've been healthy, no one's played Auburn closer other than Florida and Duke, who beat Auburn. This is a team that like we would be talking about as the number 1 team in the country coming out of Maui and all those tournaments. Had Auburn not had an 18-point comeback that I think is being forgotten in terms of who was up on Auburn, because Auburn is known as so dominant. I think it's forgotten that Iowa State is capable of beating that type of team. Auburn's better, but Iowa State was right there. Iowa State won 84-67 against Arizona, and Arizona's a team that's right now been peaking. They've been playing better basketball for the last 2 months after a really bad start, and they're one of the teams that was supposed to be top 10 in the country. So Iowa State, you look at their box score: 17 from Moncilovic, 15 from Lipsey, 12 from Heisey, 12 from Jones, 10 from Chatfield. And then you have the 8 from Jefferson, who I think is very good. Jackson provides a punch. This team, you can get 10 plus from any one of their players. And I think that makes them so difficult to play when everyone's healthy. And they're only going to get better as Jones and Gilbert get their legs under him, as Gilbert only played 23 minutes and Jones played 24. These are guys that usually go 32 to 35 minutes a game and are excellent. And both were in the conversation for All-American and first-team All-Conference status before getting injured. And they got them both back. Watch out for Iowa State. By the way, guys, it's March. We got a lot to talk about, but I got to tell you guys about Prize Picks too. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps games very exciting. So what do? You build lineups. This week, I'm looking at Jason Tatum for more than 29 points. And, you can look at Luka for assists as he's diming the ball now with the Lakers. There are fast payouts. When I win, my money hits my account in as little as 15 minutes, no waiting around, and that is a luxury. Trust me, as someone who loves to look at these sports and place wagers, well, nothing's better than when you get your money safely, securely, and in a quick time span like 15 minutes. There's also these things called Taco Tuesday deals where Prize Picks even offers these promos. It's called Taco Tuesday. So you're going to get discounted player projections for even more value on said Tuesdays, and those are money makers. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Welcome back to Locked On College Basketball Game Night. I'm Leif Thulin with you here. And with March, what does that mean? That means I'm scouring a bracket every day. I don't know if you guys are, but I bet you're looking at, even if you're not going through every day's brackets, each week you're looking at who's on the bubble, which teams can be a Cinderella, and which teams are going to crack into the tournament and ride and get in while they're hot and maybe pull a run like NC State last year where they crashed the Final Four as an 11. Well, the teams that are fighting for the tournament largely play in the SEC right now because they could have as many as 14 teams make it. I think it's unlikely. I'm leaning more towards 12. But tonight, some teams performed very well under the pressure of making it on the bubble, and some did not. So let's go through those games right here. The first one was very fun. It's where Oklahoma fell just short for the second game in a row. This is a team that started off undefeated for the second season in a row, then went into SEC play, and that's where the going gets tough. But Oklahoma hasn't folded. They've fallen short against Kentucky, blocked, losing by 1. And today it was a very hard-fought game. Sean Padula hits a go-ahead 3 that ended up being the game winner with about 20 seconds left. Oklahoma has a bad possession. Forsythe throws the ball over the backboard, which in the collegiate game is illegal. And then as the deep ball's thrown to Morrell, Jeremiah Fears reaches out, pulls the jersey, and it's called a flagrant foul. 2 free throws are made, but Oklahoma steals the ball on the inbounds, hoists it to try to tie, and it's not far off, but the Sooners fall. So this is a team that's in a very tenuous position. I think probably just on the outside of the tournament if I had to project right now. And Ole Miss, though I think even with the loss they would have still been in the tournament, I think they solidified their spot. And it's encouraging to see this team play a little better because they've been a little bit up and down throughout SEC play, which makes sense. But this is a team that I think is better than how they've performed over the last 2 months. Another notable one, but on the bad side, was the Arkansas Razorbacks. Arkansas has been playing very good basketball. They beat Missouri recently. They of course went into Kentucky and Cal's return, and they beat the Wildcats. Big time wins. This is a team with enough good wins to make it. They've got the cachet, but they laid an absolute egg, an absolute clunker, and I expect they'll fall out of the tournament because they lost to South Carolina, who had just one SEC win entering tonight. And here's a stat for you: 28 minutes into the basketball game, so 12 minutes left in the second half. Arkansas was 5 of 35 from the field and 0 of 15 from 3 against SEC's last place team. South Carolina led 50-20 at this point with 12 minutes to go. 20 points in 28 minutes is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. I believe they need to be demoted off the bubble, and they were at a 10. I think this loss is the type of loss that you have to take in how bad it was and to the opponent as opposed to just deeming it a loss. Because many people say a loss is a loss, a win is a win. I don't think that's the case. This was pitiful. Now, I don't think Vandy was on the bubble coming into the game today against Missouri, but they certainly aren't now, as the Missouri Tigers, who felt in control all game long, did not foul up 3 and had the game go to overtime, and the momentum was on the side of the home team. The Commodores won, riding the momentum, winning by 4, 97-93. And that brings me to my point. Always foul up 3. Always. The only exceptions I can think of are when you're under 3 seconds and they're just going to hoist it, so you're fouling a guy who's going to be shooting anyway. But that was not the case. A.J. Hoggard was dribbling the ball up the floor, and he had his head down, kind of a loose handle, not very in control, and he even went inside the three-point line. So even if he had vaulted into a shot miraculously and you reach out and foul, it's only 2 shots, just like it would be if you reach out and foul and he converts the 1-and-1 or the double bonus, he makes 2, you're still up. Instead, the help turns their head, kick out, Jason Edwards, splash. By the way, if you don't watch Jason Edwards at Vandy, you're missing out. The guy hits ridiculous shots all the time. The only reason they had a chance in this game is because he hit another one from the left side that put the game to, I believe, within 1 point, and then 2 free throws were made by Missouri, leading to this. So he had 6 points. He had 17, and he had 6 big time points at the end of regulation. And then the momentum was too much for the Tigers to overcome. Missouri's was good. I thought Missouri was the better team today. Missouri's lost 2 of 3 after losing 3 in a row. That's life in the SEC. But I was mostly impressed with them today. Robinson, Bates, Caleb Grill had 28 off the bench. This is a team that's got a lot of players that can score, and they've been able to beat some really good teams. They've beaten Florida. They've beaten Alabama. But you're seeing them wilt a little bit against the pressure of teams trying desperately to put themselves in position to make the tournament. Arkansas beat them late in a close game. Texas A&M beat them late in a close game. And now Vanderbilt. And this one feels like the worst of those losses because they had it wrapped up should they have fouled. Always foul up 3. I do think Missouri's probably going to be a 5 seed, and that's certainly an excellent season after an 0-18 SEC play. But tough loss, very impressive from the Commodores. And if Auburn weren't having an unbelievable historic season where I think Bruce Pearl should be the coach of the year in the SEC, Byington and Gates would certainly be 2 and 3 in my mind. And there's many options. Todd Golden certainly would have a case as well. Lastly, but certainly not least, Georgia may have had the week of the season where they beat Florida earlier this week, led by 26 at one point in that game, and then pummeled Texas today, who was ahead of them per Lenardi in terms of where they sat on the bubble, with like the last 4 in versus last 4 out, or first 4 out versus the final buys. It depended per bracket, but pretty much unanimously Texas was ahead of Georgia, and Georgia went into Texas and beat them badly. Big time game. Silas Demery led the way with 26, and Georgia is showing what they showed early in the season. They've got an athletic front court and guards that can knock down shots. They're a little bit streaky, tough to play, but I think a more well-rounded team than Texas that is reliant on Trey Johnson's heroics to get them anywhere. Trey Johnson, spectacular. First team All-SEC. Georgia, better basketball team than Texas, and they showed it today. So the bubble's getting crazy. Now, I got a few more thoughts here from the SEC, and I don't have enough time. Florida, they lost to Georgia, like I mentioned, but they're really, really good. They should be a 1 seed in my mind. They may not be, but they should be. They beat Texas A&M, who looks to be slipping a little bit of a spiral from Texas A&M, who's lost, I want to say, 4 in a row. But the Gators remain in contention for the 1 seed, and they won by 19 in a game where their first-team All-American, Walter Clayton, went 3 of 13 from the field. They're showing that they can get production from many, many different places. Richard led the way with 25 today. Tommy Houck, excellent. He had 17. He's one of the most underrated players in the country. And Micah Hanlockton has missed about a year since he got hurt in the SEC championship. He's played a little bit, and he's playing his way back into shape. That's added another element. And then he came in burning his red shirt because Alex Condon got hurt. Condon's back. He's working his way back and making Florida even more potent. Now, some fun facts about how dominant Duke has been in the ACC, which is pretty terrible. The ACC is horrible. It's just Duke, Louisville, and Clemson. And those are the only good teams. North Carolina may crack the tournament. They're playing better. They're shooting significantly better. But those are the best teams. Duke has won 9 ACC games this season by 25 or more points. That's a school record. Duke's won 5 straight by 15 or more, tying a school record. And they've won 3 straight by 35 or more points, also tying a record. They absolutely demolished Florida State today. And this isn't a game where Cooper Flagg left for a while, got poked in the eye, was in significant pain. This was without Tyrese Proctor, so you could argue their 2 best players for much of the game. Flagg came back, so no worries there, and certainly no worries for the Blue Devils, who pummeled the Seminoles. So thank you guys for making Locked On College Basketball your first listen, and with your second, listen to Locked On College Basketball. This was Game Night. Listen to the typical Locked On College Basketball show with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. Don't wait till March and be the most informed college basketball fan now. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you want to hear about the craziness that happened in Tennessee, check out Locked On Vols as well, because I'm sure the breakdown there will be spectacular, just like Jahmai Mashack's game winner was. Thank you guys for listening. This has been Locked On College Basketball Game Night. Signing off, I'm Leif Thulin.